Hello, and welcome to the first CloudOps Day webinar, and thank you for joining. My name is Brian Terry, and I'm a Senior Solution Architect in Amazon Web Services, and I'm joined by Marie Donovan, Interim Director of Research at St. Louis University, and Sri Santanam, Principal Product Manager at MontyCloud. I'm excited today because we have a rich agenda for you. First, I will talk about what CloudOps is and why you need it, and what are the characteristics of great CloudOps solutions. And next I'll be followed by Marjorie will share how CloudOps experience has helped SLU accelerate their innovation. Followed by Sri will talk a little bit about MontyCloud Day 2 and how it can help you drive CloudOps excellence and optimize costs through simplified provisioning, simplified assets management, automated routine operations. But first, to get started, our chat window is now open. So please ask questions as we go, and our MontyCloud experts will be waiting to answer your questions. I will pick random common questions from the chat window, and we will pose those to the speaker. So first, let's start by doing a quick poll question. So Sri?
Yep, let's start with a quick poll. You should be seeing a poll on which cloud you're primarily using today. The poll will be up for a few seconds. Let's see what the results are. It's going to be open for a few more seconds, so go ahead and take the poll. Majority on AWS. So the poll is now closed, Brian. As obvious, we have most of the customers in AWS.
All right, well, that's good to hear. So, moving on. First, I think I want to start off this talk by talking a little bit about what CloudOps is and some characteristics of it and how to progress to get to the point where you're achieving that in your own environments. So, CloudOps, what is it? CloudOps is cloud infrastructure as DevOps is to application development, right? So with CloudOps, you're going to have challenges, and the challenges that we see with our customers are, number one, the challenges are involving application patterns such as server, container, serverless, and skills that map to those things. So there's usually some kind of gap between skills and the services that need to be adopted and deployed in the business. And there are also budget constraints. So those are challenges what we typically see that our customers have. So some of the characteristics that follow of well-managed cloud operations include accelerating innovation. You want to have your team to be able to quickly innovate. That way they can create solutions that drive the business forward. The second characteristic of a well-managed cloud operations is risk, reduce risk at scale. So the idea of using infrastructure as code, going back to using automation versus manually creating things in the cloud, all help you kind of reduce risk. And finally, reducing the total cost of cloud operations, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to reduce costs, but at the same time, give a operational excellence to our customers, so they can, use what you have to offer in the cloud. So moving on. So let's talk a little bit about achieving cloud excellence. So when we think of cloud excellence, we think about using guardrails, right? Things in place that your cloud teams can utilize in order to achieve excellence in cloud. We talk about using infrastructure as code, right? The idea of using something like CloudFormation to define your infrastructure and deploy your infrastructure. The idea behind this is that you have a repeatable way of deploying solutions. And earlier we talked about mitigating risk, right? So infrastructure's code can help you do that. So embracing infrastructure as code, following well-architected principles is here at AWS that we try to encourage our customers to do. And we've outlined that in a lot of our documentations. So what does that mean with CloudOps, right? So at AWS, we always think of every day as being day one, right? But with MontyCloud, they think about these day two actions, and these are continuously improving upon your infrastructure and managing it at scale. So MontyCloud provides a solution to help you manage your infrastructure scale once you have deployed it, and it helps you keep you aligned with that whole way of being CloudOps centric and driving toward that point of having operational excellence. So now we've talked a little bit about what CloudOps is and what MontyCloud has to offer. Let's open it up for another polling question. All right, and it looks like, based on a polling, that everyone's moderate. So you're using some sort of infrastructure as code tooling, which is good, right? So, and then we have low, which have an operating, are mostly manual, and that's fine, right? But you can, get to that point, and MontyCloud can help you get there. So moving on, we're going to pass it over to Cherie, and she's going to talk a little bit about simplifying provisioning.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Autonomous Cloud Ops is a journey. In speaking with hundreds of cloud teams, we have identified 3 areas that successful digital transformation leaders do. They empower their teams with deliberate investment on simplified, self-service cloud deployments, leveraging infrastructure as a code templates. They demand full visibility across resources, security, compliance, and cost. And they want to methodically drive down the total cost of cloud operations so they can use the savings to drive innovations. As Brian mentioned, 1/3 of cloud spend is wasted due to the lack of visibility and efficient usage. I'll be going over all of this shortly. First, let's dive deep into the simplifying deployments to empower the builders. Intelligent applications are what our customers want to focus on. And public cloud services enable them to deliver in faster pace. However, the path to that involves many layers of shared responsibilities. For example, customers should provision cloud accounts, users, they have to set up their infrastructure layers, network, storage, and complex application patterns, such as serverless, containers, and high-performance computing. On top of that, they have to deal with complex cloud operations problems, such as security, compliance, cost, and disaster recovery, and so on. With MontyCloud Day 2, we automate all of this in few clicks. We have abstracted the cloud complexities, so customer can simply set up AWS best practices, guardrails on their cloud accounts, They can set up their VPC, VPN network layers and complex application infrastructures like EMR, ECS, and EKS, etc. Better yet, we also have all of this services comes with operation-ready automation. We also provide continuous visibility and autonomous bots for security and compliance assessment. We have 40+ templates and hundreds of automated tasks. Let me show you how we help customers to fast-track their deployments and operational readiness. Let's take an example. We have our RDS blueprint in day 2. Customer can, in few clicks, can deploy Amazon Aurora, MySQL, MariaDB, etc. in few clicks. They can use readily available automated operations for taking snapshots and backups. Now, the administrators can also constrain these templates for certain guardrails. For example, if Department 1 wants to deploy this RDS in the demo environment, they can simply constrain it to a small size DB with no highly available zones. Wherein Department 2 that wants to deploy the same RDS in a production environment, they make it available with large DB size and a multi-availability zone. So that's allowing certain configurations and tasks limited to a target department within the company. Now, let me hand off to Maureen, our customer from St. Louis University, who will share how SLU drives CloudOps Excellence with MontyCloud. On to you, Maureen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sri, and thanks for the introduction, Brian, as well. So if you want to go to the next slide, Sri. So I'm the, as Brian said, I'm the interim director of research computing here at St. Louis University. We're a fairly old university for the United States. We were founded in 1818, so we're in our 3rd century of operation. We're the oldest university west of the Mississippi River and the 2nd oldest Jesuit Catholic university in the US. We're a fairly moderate size. We have about 12,500 students at our St. Louis campus, about 2,100 faculty, 2,700 academic staff, and about 1,300 of those students, staff, and faculty are involved in extramural research, which totaled about $45 million in 2020. So I head up the research computing group. We are a standalone group that's dedicated to providing support to our researchers whose computational needs really extend beyond the typical desktop support provided by enterprise IT. Now, SLU defined a strategic plan for our research to double our research mission over the next 5 years. And our research computing is an essential part of that because we are critical to many different types of research across the university. However, that puts us in something of a conundrum because our current research infrastructure isn't really quite up to that task. We have an on-prem HPC that many of our more computationally oriented researchers access, but it is at this point, well, I wouldn't say it's exactly state of the art, and it lacks really the storage and compute power to meet our current needs, much less to grow with our new research endeavors. And one of our biggest pushes in terms of growing our research is to attract more faculty who are interested in big data type research. So we've known for several years that we need to move to the cloud for all the reasons that most of you are aware of in terms of cost containment and efficiencies. And but we don't have the expertise on campus, and our research group is small, and we're not really in a position to hire full-time staff to help us make that transition. Nor can we really go to our individual researchers and expect them to have the training to stand up, much less manage their own cloud instances. So we sought out some third-party support and identified MontyCloud a little over a year ago as a potential partner. And we really liked the size of the company. We felt that MontyCloud would provide a more flexible and collaborative approach to our research, computational research needs rather than sort of a one-size-fits-all. We also really like the day two platform because across the different departments with the different research needs and the different budgets for cloud spend, we thought they could provide cloud access to a variety of researchers with little to no cloud expertise. So what I'd like to tell you about is a few instances of our journey over the past year with MontyCloud to provide some additional research computational support to our researchers. So we have, I'm going to tell you three. We've worked on 4 major projects with MontyCloud so far. One has been migrating some of our digital humanities websites from the current on-prem system to a more modernized infrastructure. That I won't say much more about, but the 3 stories I want to talk about are eLab FTW, which is a serverless application, our on-demand HPC in the cloud, and a data analytics application involving petabyte scale data sizes. So if the next slide, so the eLab FTW, this is an electronic lab notebook option that we wanted to provide to our researchers. You can think of it as essentially a project management tool for research. Now, not all of our researchers have the same needs, but we estimated that probably 30 different labs with well over 100 research personnel would ultimately adopt this tool. And there are commercial applications out for electronic lab notebooks, but our budget sort of precluded us going down that road. And so we chose to leverage the free and open source option called eLab FTW. Now, this didn't reduce the functionality. We did not have to compromise on that because this application provides a pretty flexible, customizable templates for our researchers for the different data types that they collect. And the automated backup and audit trails that are part of that application will meet the requirements for NIH data management protocols, or policies rather, that will be required coming, I think, 2022. And it also provides IP protection for those researchers who are interested in ultimately moving towards commercialization of their research discoveries. So this was great, but the challenge was setting this up and with reliable infrastructure, with the data security, the scalability, and while at the same time containing the costs and not being able to hire someone to manage the system. So we took advantage of MontyCloud's blueprints to provision the infrastructure, and using these day 2 blueprints, we're able to set this up, or rather they've been able to set this up as an application following all the best practices for AWS. You know, we have the virtual private cloud and the VPNs if we need it. And all of this is done automatically. So while we don't manage the application with 0 resources in the sense that we obviously have a cloud computing cost through AWS, we haven't had to hire someone specifically to manage this application. So from that end, our costs are significantly contained. And all in all, this was definitely a win for us and being able to provide a much needed tool to our researchers. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the HPC on demand. So a lot of our researchers and students, you know, they need high performance compute environment, so that because the data sizes are growing every year. And particularly in the Department of Chemistry, we have a lot of users who do molecular modeling research. So while the data size or data sets for molecular modeling don't tend to be really large, the computational calculations that are done are actually quite large. And over the years, the chemistry department had purchased compute nodes that resided on our on-prem HPC that were dedicated to chemistry research. However, in a recent upgrade that we did to our HPC to improve the switching, we rendered the InfiniBand cards on their compute nodes obsolete. So they were stuck in a place where they either had to upgrade aging hardware or find another solution. And so they came to us and asked if we could help them transition to doing cloud computing. But obviously this comes with a lot of challenges. And so again, we turned to the day 2 platform where they have the Slurm blueprints that enabled us to, you know, set this up as a self-service provisioning with all the guardrails in place and we didn't have to worry about managing this in a, setting up all the configurations. And this is particularly important because, well, actually, let's, if you go to the next slide, it describes a little bit in more detail what this system looks like. So we set this up with multiple smaller compute nodes so that the end users could choose the size of instance that they needed for the project they were doing, because not everyone's using the same size, doing the same type of calculation or needing the same level of computing power. And again, they're all set up with capacity guardrails. They spin up and they spin down automatically. So we don't have a situation where a grad student starts a M5 extra large instance, does his calculation, forgets to shut it down, goes off to Florida for spring break and leaves it running for a week, running up a pretty nice bill. And the nice thing, one of the really nice things that, so we have both HPC using the Slurm, which most of the users were already familiar with from our HPC environment. We also have AWS Batch where they can set it up and run it in that mode. And another feature is that there's session access available as one of the templates. So researchers who want to control the jobs, they can go into the session access and do it that way. And all of this is done without having to create SSM, access keys for our individual users. And it's just, the amount of effort that we've saved is unbelievable. The cost to upgrade our on-prem HPC to meet their needs is way more than what we've spent so far, or what they have spent so far in running in the cloud. One of our heavy users in chemistry reached out last week with an email to say how happy he was with the system. He's been able to process, he said, thousands of PDB and CIF files with up to 10 EC2 instances running simultaneously. And he's not had to worry about running out of disk space or the processors becoming unstable like he did on our on-prem system. So again, a great success for us. And we see this being adopted beyond the chemistry department over the next years. We have other users on the HPC. We'd like to transition to the cloud. And we think this will be a workable solution for quite a few of our researchers. So the last project was one that we simply could not have done without access to cloud computing and without access to the support of a group like MontyCloud. So the Sinkfeld Center for Advanced Economic Research came to us and said, oh, well, we've purchased access to cell phone data for the entire US, and this comes with historical data from 2019, and then daily data from 2020, and they're continuing on into 2021. And so they had to deal with the researchers in this group were dealing with daily dumps on the order of 90 to 100 gigabytes a day that needed to then be processed, converted to a CSV format, and then processed into different metro areas. And their research is focused on, they then add data to this to create onto certain places of interest. So they process the data to say, pull out the St. Louis metro area, and then they pull out areas in other parts of the US, where they then add additional data onto it and create these longitudinal records of phone ID and track mobility of users. So they're interested in things like what are the employment outcomes among different industries in different parts of the US? What are the leisure behaviors of individuals? And then they have other researchers here at SLU working with the process data who are interested more in health behaviors. An example, one project is looking at the difference in weekend leisure locations, weekend leisure location choices before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic, and hopefully soon with the rollout of the vaccine after the pandemic ends and we're all able to move freely about. So obviously this is a significant computational challenge given the size of the data. So we needed, continuous on-demand processing when every data set got dumped into their S3 bucket, it needed to get converted and then processed. So MontyCloud helped us write Lambda scripts to do the conversion And then one of the researchers is a pretty good Python programmer. He wrote a script to process the CSV files, but then we had to come back to MontyCloud and say, can you help us do multi-threading on this? We don't have that expertise, but it would go much faster if we could multi-thread this processing script rather than just run it on one, a few threads. So this runs on an EC2-based Linux-based application. It uses a M5A 12 extra large processor with 48 cores and 192 gigabytes of RAM. So you can imagine that's not exactly a cheap bill, but I tried to work out what it would cost to try and upgrade our system to provide that level of computational power, and this is still way cheaper. Not to mention the speed with which we were able to get this up and running was much faster than what we could have done trying to do it on our own. And so the other thing that's provided is we have automatic data migration. So these are pretty large data files that are coming in. And so the Parquet format, as soon as it's converted to CSV, gets pushed into deep archive storage. Then the CSV file, after it's processed, also gets pushed into less access storage. So we're managing our storage costs. And we're able to offer, automatic application deployment. So as this research group grows, they can, deploy and set up a new deployment without having a long delay in getting that done. So to wrap up, in our year of working with MontyCloud, in the next slide, I just kind of sum up what we've done so far. We've done the serverless application. We've created on-demand HPCs. We're doing this petabyte scale data processing, which we simply could not have offered support for without this type of support from MontyCloud. And going forward, we're going to continue to modernize the websites for our Ong Center for Digital Humanities. We're in discussions with a linguistic professor who built up his own linguistic tool to help teach students a second language. And it's gotten so much interest that he now needs to scale this. And so we'll be talking with MontyCloud about how to possibly scale this. And we'd also like to set up for our computational courses a cloud computing sandbox that the students can use with significant guardrails, obviously, for controlling that. So I would like to thank the organizers the opportunity to present St. Louis University's cloud journey, and I'll turn it back over to Sri.
Actually, Brian, would you like to jump in?
Yeah. Thank you, Maureen. You echo a lot of what we see or hear from our customers about achieving cloud operation excellence. You talked a little bit about the challenges, gaps in cloud skills and tooling. You talked a little bit about the budget constraints and shared responsibilities across multiple parts of the organization. And finally, you talked about the keeping up with evolving application patterns such as serverless and containers and et cetera, even on your own environment. And I'm happy to see that you're well on your way to achieving CloudOps Excellence. You're accelerating innovation within your organization. You're having people be able to deploy these very kind of complex infrastructures on AWS by using simple infrastructure as code offerings from MontyCloud. And those infrastructure as code MontyCloud blueprints are built on AWS CloudFormation, and they're designed to be in a well-architected pattern, helping you get to that point of having that operational excellence and knowing that when you deploy these blueprints from MontyCloud, that you have a secure and well-architected solution to deploy it. And this is excellent. It's definitely showing how you've gone from those day one activities to using kind of a day two kind of mindset using multi-cloud solutions. So thank you for talking to us about that. So with that said, let's take another do another polling question. So Sheree, let's present that to the audience.
Yep, the poll just got started.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is, it's not too surprising. You know, a lot of people, or a lot of our customers, we hear from them that, you know, one of the things, the top concerns for your team is cloud security. And then it's normally reducing costs of cloud operations. So this is quite spot on to what we hear and see from our customers.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So we spoke about simplified operations-ready self-service provisioning. Now, let's take a look at the next foundational construct for well-managed operations: the full visibility across resources, security, compliance, and cost. Traditional discovery exercises are manual, time-consuming, expensive, and only provide point in time of the view. Continuous visibility is very indispensable for effective business decisions. With day 2, you get unified and continuous visibility across your multi-account, multi-region footprint with context-sensitive visibility that matters to you, such as applications and departments, built-in classifications, grouping the resources as VPC, tags, cloud formation. And we also provide actionable insights, the governance related ones, such as untagged and unmanaged resources. With that continuous visibility, the next comes security. As we all know, shared responsibility security model is a primary construct in the cloud security strategy. But customers' responsibility is getting increasingly difficult because of the dynamic nature of the footprint and growing cyber attacks and multiple tools proliferation. With the lack of security expertise across cross-functional teams, there is a management and misconfigurations that also cause overruns. With day 2 security bot, we perform 220 plus checks that aligns with industry standards and security best practices. We also provide real-time notifications in your existing collaboration platforms. And we have an extensive catalog of automated remediations that is gonna be a single click remediation for most of your security issues. Let's talk about compliance. One of our customers, a Fortune global CRM platform company, was struggling with continuous assessments of their compliance governance across 13 plus accounts and regions. They were struggling with repetitive manual operations across thousands of mission critical resources, causing extensive delays in collaboration and responding to those compliance violations. With day 2 compliance bot, we reduce that in just few minutes, not in a weeks of time. Our customer is now set up with continuous cloud compliance across their footprint. We perform 160 plus checks that aligns on industry standards, and we provide real-time notifications on their existing ChatOps channels such as Slack. Like with security bot, our compliance bot also comes with extensive catalog of automated remediations that customer can use for faster resolving their compliance violations. Another customer we had, a leading online pharmacy team, were suffering from cost overruns among many other CloudOps inefficiencies. We saved over $300,000 annually for them by getting the visibility that they lacked before, providing a granular and accurate reporting on their business context such as applications, and actionable insights on the unused, unattached volumes of resources, such as EBS volumes, snapshots. With that said, customers now are empowered with simplified deployments, cloud deployments, full and continuous visibility. The last step is reducing the total cost of cloud operations, where the IT leaders would like to take a holistic approach towards continuous operations and effective and effortless incident management. In day 2, we provide integrated CloudOps dashboard that provides a single holistic view of security, compliance, cost, optimizations, operational issues as a function of growth in cloud footprint. I want to bring your attention to the center visual here. With this single unified view in the hands of IT leaders and teams, day 2 recommends that leaders should demand their teams to drive down their security compliance issues, while growth of the footprint is inevitable for the innovations ahead. While also maintaining optimal cost. With that, I want to take a quick recap of all the things that we spoke today. IT leaders must empower their teams, and with self-service provisioning, intelligent applications are scaling for the cloud, and they are playing very well with the cloud native services. With that, instead of demanding for infrastructure management, cloud management operational activities, IT leaders should demand for the driving the innovations to serve their customers better. And the path for delivering excellence in CloudOps is embracing the infrastructure as a code, following the well-architected principles from the ground up, adopting a day 2 mindset on day 1, making the whole cloud efficient CloudOps at any size is a cultural mindset. Brian, would you like to take some questions before I do the call for action?
Absolutely. Sheree, thank you. Let's take a look at some of the questions we've got coming in on the chat. We don't currently have any right now in the chat, but I have a couple questions for you. Number one, how does one get started with using your platform? Is there an agent they have to install, or can you talk a little bit about that process?
That's a great question. Actually, day 2 is an agentless, serverless, cloud native platform. So SaaS platform. So you don't need any agent to get started.
Oh, wow, that's great. So, wow. And I have other questions too. Marine, I think your journey is going to resonate with a lot of the people that's on this call and a lot of people that see this webinar. I noticed you talked about your organization going from exploring AWS to now running 5 kind of complex applications. Can you talk a little bit about what best practices, any kind of best practices you can share with anyone on this webinar or people that's trying to do the exact same thing you're trying to do?
So I have to say, when I started this position, I had none, and I have really honestly very little experience in cloud operations. So I came into this just trying to figure out ways to get our researchers more productive and give them the tools and resources that they need. And so for this, I really have to depend on a group like MontyCloud who who takes care of the overhead for us. We have a solutions architect who's working directly with me, and so she provides my sanity check internally. But we're not network engineers. We're not security. We don't have the security training. So to me, it doesn't make I'm not sure how you would go about it trying to set all this up on your own and deal with all of that operational overhead. So I think you need to partner with someone who provides that expertise, whether you end up hiring that or working with a third party, as we have chosen to do, working with, on a contract basis. I just don't think any one person's capable of doing all of that in a way that really meets all the best practices. So I would definitely encourage people to find partners to help them do that.
Wow, that's great. So you went from running 0 applications to 5 applications currently. Do you see yourself expanding upon that in the future?
Oh, definitely. There are users at SLU who have set up their own cloud operations independently, and we do have some other projects in which we've partnered with AWS directly to set them up, and then we have third-party contractors who are doing the networking. We have some HIPAA-compliant applications that were needed to be done in a way that would satisfy our security needs for the HIPAA data. So that's probably 3 other projects there, and we've got some other ones that were relatively straightforward that we're setting up internally. So probably I could see us being to 15 applications by the end of next year without too much of a stretch. It's just there's so many aspects of being able to do cloud computing and getting that on-demand compute power when you need it without paying for it when you don't, that just makes too much sense for a university that, we're not in a position to set up a huge cluster and have it running 24/7. So.
Wow, that's excellent. Can you say that by having those guardrails in place, allow your team to innovate quicker?
Oh, absolutely. It comes with a comfort level that we don't have inexperienced people setting up an instance without recognizing or understanding the need for using these automatic startup, or more importantly, the automatic shutdowns when they're not using them. Because I have gone through it a little bit on my own to try and set up a sort of my own little cloud instance, and it's not straightforward. And I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of researchers for whom that would be something that they would feel comfortable doing on their own. So having it done in a way where they can, they can pick and choose, they understand the computational needs, but they don't have to worry about all the rest of it is probably the key part for us being able to innovate and provide support to them in a way that makes sense.
Wow, that's excellent. Do you find that, I know you talked about you have a solution architect on staff. Do you find that their platform allows some of your users, your more experienced cloud users, to have some flexibility in the solutions that MontyCloud creates?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely the case. The users in chemistry and actually the users at the SCARE in the Center for Economic Advanced Economic Research, SCARE, they had some pretty good programmers, and they know what they need to do to the data, but it's still working in an environment that they're not as familiar with, and they're not, they don't have training in parallel computing or HPC environment. So that's where working directly with MontyCloud to help them has been a huge part of that. And we have worked directly with AWS engineers too. It's not that we couldn't find support. It's just a matter of the level of support and the number of projects we wanted to do was kind of beyond what we could do that way. So.
Oh, wow, that's good to hear.
Brian, I would like to add on your question and what Maureen was expanding on, right? Extensibility, right? As much MontyCloud have all built-in operations, we are also extensible to bring your own templates and custom scripts and integrate with our platform. That will be available in your private catalog to consume and use.
Well, that's very interesting. So you mean that if there's an organization that has a catalog of CloudFormation templates that they've kind of created and they're fleshed out architecturally and vetted with their security team, they can bring those same CloudFormation templates into your platform?
Yes, and including custom scripts to fix the security issues and everything. Yeah.
Wow, that's really impressive. So there's no limitation on that, right? Because when we think of creating infrastructure as code AWS, we have this service called CloudFormation that integrates into 95% of AWS resources. So you're saying by integrating these templates, that makes you all also compatible with those 95% or 90% of resources?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Wow, that's really exciting. Well, Sri, I have a couple more questions for you. I mean, this is an exciting platform, and hopefully I'm asking the same questions that some of our viewers are kind of thinking. So, say for instance, I have an organization and our environment is very dynamic. You know, the resources are spun up, they're terminated quite frequently. A lot of times to be elastic, right, to reduce costs, but still maintaining operational performance. How often does your platform take a snapshot of that environment?
That's a great question. The discovery and visibility is continuous in day 2. So if a resource is getting added or removed, you will instantaneously see that in our day 2 console as well. And you also have the up-to-the-minute of all your views in the dashboard.
Wow, that's excellent. I mean, that's excellent. So to follow up on that, one of the things that kind of goes hand in hand with this kind of operational excellence is communication, I think. So if there's a team within my organization and they want to get updates from the platform, does your platform integrate into Slack or anything like that for notifications?
Yes, yes. Like I mentioned before, yes, day 2 integrates with a Slack. You can also integrate with other collaboration ticketing systems such as Jira and PagerDuty, and receive your notifications right there in your collaboration platforms.
Oh, that's excellent to hear, because I imagine a lot of our customers or a lot of your customers too, and anyone on this webinar kind of relates to that, to be able to have that bridge of communication. And it's kind of great to hear that you kind of have that out of the box. Okay, to expand upon that, Marina, I have a lot more questions, especially around your case study. Why do your users need access to EC2 instances, and how do your firewalls how does having this kind of infrastructure as code help them, have these guardrails when using things like EC2?
I'm not sure I completely understand the question. So what do they need in terms of EC2 instances, or like what types, or?
Oh yeah, so you talked a little bit about some of the, in your case study, you talked about they're using these high performance computing, and they're using EC2. Can you talk a little bit about how this multi-cloud blueprints has helped them like deploy these instances and not have to worry about configuration aspects such as firewalls and things like that?
Sure. Yeah. They so they we worked out sort of what EC2 instance they needed in terms of for the the data processing that they needed to have happen. Then that EC2 instance got defined, and so when they go to launch it, they go in through, I believe it's through the remote desktop, and then they log into the system, and it just launches that specific one. So they're not going into a console and saying, oh, I have to choose between the RT2 large M5. I mean, so that's all that complexity is abstracted out, so that they They just know I need to go here. It'll launch what I need to do. My scripts are in place. The data's there. We're also running as part of that project some app streams so that they have access to the software that they use for a lot of the data processing, and statistical and mapping software. So it's again all running on a EC2 instance, and so they have better computational power to it. They have access to the shared S3 bucket where all the data resides, and yet the environment looks completely familiar to them. So it's a Windows environment where they can run their packages, and they don't have to, it's not like they have to learn a whole new interface just to access this data.
I can add to what Maureen said, right? Day two, like Maureen mentioned, we abstract the complexity and we provide one single click session access to all the EC2 instance. So customers who are using Day two will be only caring about the business access management, and we will completely take care of abstracting the Bastion host and all of that. There is no need for it, and there is a single click session access that we provide for all the EC2 instances. That way, the customers are able to perform their actions without thinking about IAM setup and Bastion host setup.
Yeah.
Wow. So what you're describing is like for the people within our organization, this is like one-click access to them deploying an EC2 instance to being able to have shell access. And this is just one click away, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's very impressive. So a lot of times, in a manual entity, you would probably have to have your cloud operation team spin up the EC2 instances, and then there'd be some sharing of credentials. And sometimes that could take, a couple days or a couple weeks before people have that infrastructure. But it looks like what you're explaining and what you're kind of using right now is a one-click solution to allow your teams to have that when they need it. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, it's especially important to the research team that when they have a significant level of expertise in what they study, but they don't have to be a cloud expert to run it in this environment. And if you put those kind of barriers in front of people, even like if I have to say share files through SFTP, and they have to somehow get an SSH key, that simple step alone is a barrier to a fair number of researchers. It's just not what they were trained in. It's not the way they think. So we need to make this as seamless as it can be so that they have access to the resources they need without having to get completely trained in a new area of computation that they don't need to be trained in. They can focus on their research and they can do what they need to do without worrying about all the rest of it. So
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's what we hear from our customers. They want to be able to focus on what differentiates, their business, right? Instead of focusing on how to properly set up their workload.
Thank you again, Maureen and Brian, for joining me today, and thanks everyone for joining us. With Day two, you get to reduce your total cost of cloud operation up to 70% using the autonomous CloudOps. Right now, the full visibility, security, and compliance assessments are available for free. Please go ahead and try it now at MontyCloud.com. Thank you.